Good afternoon. It is Wealth Wednesday. We go live every single Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about wealth creation, building your wealth. I kind of feel like I need a money gun. So last week we had a big team meeting for the multifamily conference, and they showed me this video of a money gun, and they were shooting it. I need that today because we're talking about some money. I have friends who are very wealthy. I have friends who are not very wealthy. And the wealthy friends do things very, very differently. They think about wealth in a very specific way. And my good friend, Sunjay Nath, is going to be joining us in just a little bit to walk us through the psychology of wealth creation. But first, before we get over to Sunjay, I found some mind-blowing stats about wealth and wealth creation. And I think, one of the big changes or the big differences between my wealthy friends and my not so wealthy friends are the way they think about money. The wealthy friends feel and they know deep down inside that wealth is out there. They just have to tap into it. And these stats definitely prove that mindset. So stat number one, did you know that the world gained 5.2 million millionaires last year? That's a tongue twister and a half. And in the US right now, 1,700 people, so 1,700 people are becoming millionaires every single day. So it's not just like one shot thing. Every single day, 1,700 people are becoming millionaires. Now get this, there are almost 22 millionaires right now in the USA. It's like 21,951,000 millionaires right now. And this makes up 39% of the world's total 56 million millionaires. Now, that increased 10% over last year. Now, what happened over the past couple of years? We had a pandemic. We had fear in the market. We had uncertainty. We had people closing in. So how do the world's richest people, how do they actually, build more wealth when things are going down? The same thing with what's going on right now. We are entering into a recession, or we're already in a recession. It doesn't matter. That point is moot. What does matter is what you do with the opportunity that is presenting itself for you right now. So we just saw a 10.5% increase in the total number of millionaires from last year to this year because of the pandemic. So millionaires' wealth is created in times of uncertainty, and that's exactly what we're heading back into now. So 1.1% of the world's total population are millionaires. And this adds up to about 56 million people. Now, this group collectively, so as a whole, this 1.1% of the world's population, they have about $191.6 trillion, and they control 46% of the world's wealth. So let's say half of the world's wealth is controlled by 1.1% of the population. Now, like I said, I've got very wealthy friends. I've got not so wealthy friends. The wealthy friends think about things differently. They do things differently. And this is what puts them in that top 1.1%. So I'm really excited to have Sunjay on with us in just a little bit. Now, what kind of profession produces the most amount of millionaires, right? There's all sorts of professions out there. You could be an actor, and high-paid actor. You could be in, oil and gas. You could be in finance, whatever it is. The finance and investment profession has the most number of millionaires. In fact, it has the most number of billionaires. 371 billionaires are in the finance and investment profession. So fortunately, we are in the investment space with Multifamily Mondays, the Multifamily Conference, the channel, everything we're doing. So you're in the right spot. You are in the right sector. And one of the things is, the way I approach things is, when I'm looking to enter a space or accomplish a goal, I have to make sure I'm in the right spot, right? It's kind of like with the real estate market. You don't want to look for a high growth market and end up in the middle of nowhere in the desert, right? That's not a high growth market. You have to find the right spot, and that will be the wind pushing against your back, pushing against your sails, giving you that extra boost forward. You have to be in the right spot. And finance and investment, it certainly is the right spot because 371 billionaires find themselves working in finance and investments, and it also has the most number of millionaires. So who are millionaires? Like, what do they look like? What is the avatar? With everything we do, whether it's with the conference, whether it's with our Discover Multifamily students, whatever we're working on, we always build an avatar. So who is the person? And So what we do is when we go through the exercise, I think in my head, okay, well, what do they look like? What are their fears? What are they looking to achieve? What's their name? It really helps out when you give that avatar a name. So instead of saying, my customer, you say, well, it's John, it's, Patricia, it's Susie, whatever, Amy, whatever it is. So what does the average millionaire look like? What's their avatar? Well, the average millionaire is 57 years old, but 19%, so almost 20%, 1 in 5 millionaires are between the ages of 18 and 31. Now, that's going to be a large part in the tech sector, but 18 and 31, 19% of millionaires are between the ages of 18 and 31. So it doesn't matter if you're a young guy like I used to be, or if you're an older person, it doesn't matter, because the average age of the average age of a millionaire is 57 years old, but 20% of them fall between 18 and 31. So we've covered millionaires, but now let's add a B and talk about billionaires. I need my money gun. All right. So in the U.S. has 724 billionaires, according to Forbes. That was in 2021. And worldwide, there were 2,755. So 2,755 billionaires in the world, with an increase of 660 in just 1 year. So again, same thing with the millionaires. The total number of millionaires increased by 10.5% because of the pandemic, because of the lockdowns, because of the fear it created. Billionaires, it was the same thing. 661 billionaires were created in just a single year. So what are they doing differently? How are they thinking differently to achieve that wealth? And half of the billionaires were between 50 and 70 years old. So now I want to focus on the actual money part. So these people have accrued, they have assembled large portfolios. That's their wealth. But how much money is actually in the hands of these billionaires? So about $5 trillion is in the hands of just 745 US-based billionaires. $5 trillion is in the hand of just 745 people in the United States right now. Now, compare that with the $3 trillion that is shared amongst the bottom half of American households. So you take the bottom half of households across the US, so the 50% and below, take all of that wealth, add it together, that's just $3 trillion. But you add up the top wealth of the top 745 million American billionaires, that's $5 trillion. Now, the total net worth of American billionaires rose 70% during the pandemic. 70% increase in wealth. So while most people were scared, they were fearful, they changed how they were doing things in a negative way because of the pandemic, billionaires shifted their mindset. They thought about things differently, and they massively increased their wealth. Imagine having a 70% increase in terms of your paycheck, 70% increase in terms of your total portfolio, dollar value, 70% increase in annual cash flow, whatever it is. That is a huge number. So what are they doing differently? How are they thinking to put themselves in the right spot to seize that opportunity? So about 55% of adults worldwide have less than $10,000 in assets. So we're talking worldwide now. 55% of adults worldwide have less than $10,000 in assets. Now, 32.8%, so let's round it up to say 33%, have between $10,000 and $100,000. So 33% of adults worldwide have between $10,000 and $100,000 in assets. Now, these are US dollars. Now we go up to the 11.1%. 11.1% of the world adult population has between $100,000 and $1 million. That's 11.1% to have between $100,000 and $1 million. But when we really narrow things down, we're talking about 1.1% of the world's population are millionaires. So I want to get inside their brains, especially the billionaires. I want to get inside their brain and really find out how they're thinking about things, how they're approaching problem solving, how they're building frameworks, how they're building their systems, because what they're doing is a lot different than what everybody else is doing. And at the end of the day, money piles up. The more value you create, the more money, the more you are rewarded by the economy. So that's why I'm very excited to have Sunjay join us in just a couple minutes when he's going to come on and talk about wealth creation and the psychology of it. Because the more I've been around, the more I talk to very successful people, it's those small changes. It doesn't have to be drastic changes. It's the small changes on how you perceive problems, how you analyze problems, how you implement solutions, how you build systems and frameworks. Those are the small tweaks that are that can make the difference between being, part of a general population and then moving yourself to that 1.1% of the population that are enjoying all the fruits of their labor right now. So before we move over to Sunjay, I just want to say like and comment on this video. We are giving away t-shirts again. Today we're giving away Mogul in the Making t-shirts. These are very popular. We also have the unit size matters. These are very popular on Multifamily Mondays. So make sure you like and comment, and also let me know where you are tuning in from today. We've got people on Facebook. We've got people on YouTube. We've got people joining us from all over the place on LinkedIn. So post a comment. Let me know. And I would be very, very curious to see where you're tuning in from. Also, we did announce the winner of the Loaded Multifamily Conference ticket a couple days ago. That was for the month of November. So what happens is, as long as you like and comment on this video, you are automatically entered. Katie's behind the controls. So you are automatically entered into the draw for that month. So at the end of December, we will be drawing the Loaded Elite ticket for the Multifamily Conference coming up May 26th to 28th, featuring Grant Cardone. Talking of billionaires, he's got a jet helicopter. He has a lot of real estate under his control, about $5 billion or so. And then Arent, right? Arent too owns over 15,000 multifamily units. So what we'll do, let's go on a bit of a break, and I'll see you back here with Sunjay. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Wealth Wednesdays. I'm now joined by Sunjay Nath. Sunjay, nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And just in case you're watching right now and you're not sure, Sunjay was a guest speaker at an event I did. Basically, we brought together some of the top thought leaders from around North America, and we ran this right after the pandemic. I think it was pretty fresh. And you were a big hit. And I think I've definitely changed how I thought about influencing people, and it made a really big impact. So we still have 3 copies of your book at my house.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I thought that you invited me back because you thought I couldn't do possibly worse, and you're giving me a second shot. Learning from your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So today the topic is wealth creation. And before we took the break, I just walked through some pretty mind-blowing stats about how the world's wealth is held. And today we really want to dive deep into the psychology of wealth creation, because this is a subject that you've done a lot of work on. You've studied it a lot, and I'm really, really interested in seeing what you have to say. So I guess to start things off, for me, my personality type, whenever I hear about the psychology of something, or you have to have the mindset, my BS meter goes off through the roof, because I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. I have to wish it. But why is psychology actually important, and why does it have the big impact it does on wealth creation?
So a couple things. First of all, money, and let me back up a second. I'm going to assume that for this topic, when we talk about wealth creation, we're talking about financial wealth, because wealth has many dimensions, right? There's physical wealth, there's emotional wealth, there's relationship wealth. So for today's topic, we're assuming wealth and money are kind of going hand in hand. So is that a fair assumption?
That is a fair assumption. And I think, like, when I talk with my investors and everybody in my sphere, like they focus on the monetary wealth because that really gives them the freedom of decisions, like, later on.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that just for what we're talking about today, I think, yeah, that's what we want to focus on.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
the idea of money, and people think that money changes things. And money, I promise you, does not change anything. All it does, money is a great amplifier, which means if you are a generous philanthropist and you get more money, you will give more. That's what you'll do. And if you are a jackass and you get money, you will be a bigger jackass. If you are a narcissist, you get money, you become a bigger narcissist. It does not change anything. So why is it important for the psychology? Because for two things. Number one is it allows you to potentially, because if you talk to really wealthy people, most of them will tell you it is actually easier to make the money than it is to keep it. And if you look at, there was a book years ago, it was called, I believe it was called The Lottery. And it went and it tracked, I don't remember the stats, I'm going to make them up, but the gist of what I'm saying is the takeaway, is they tracked like 1,000 lottery winners over a span of whatever, 10 years. And they found like 95% of the lottery winners within 2 years were financially worse off than pre-winning the lottery, regardless of how much they won. So if psychologically you're not ready, if you don't believe that you're worth the wealth, you will see water finds its level. And if your psychological level of water is, I'm a bum, I don't deserve this, I'm below poverty, or whatever story you're running in your head, it doesn't matter what you get, you will dissipate it to the point where you were like, oh yeah, I feel good about that. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether you do self-sabotage or you have bad luck, you will get to the equilibrium of which you believe, and that equilibrium is what the psychology is.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a friend who works with like very wealthy families to set up their family office. And one thing she's found is when somebody, let's say great or great grandpa, made all the money, by the third generation, that money is gone. It's squandered most of the time because it's so far removed from the person who actually created it with the mindset and how they did it. And that's a big problem right now with her family offices, because generation 3, like the kids, they have no idea what they're doing.
100%. And there's I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I read his book, and that's what he talks about: shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve in 3 generations. And that is, it is a very common thing. So the first generation busts their butt and they understand the value, and they come from humble means. And then the second generation takes it and they squander it all. And then it's a very common it's a very common cycle. So I mean, that's why the psychology becomes important, because if you don't have a purpose, which is part of the psychology, and you happen to come across the money, you'll squander it. If you do have a purpose, but you don't go beyond just the purpose, again, you will make the money, but you won't know how to retain it. So the psychology piece is so paramount to it, that and again, some people can win the lottery, and I'm using win the lottery as a random act of financial goodness, but that doesn't mean financial security. And at the same time too, there are people who are very financially secure but don't have much wealth. And again, me personally, if I'm picking, I pick that over having lots of wealth but being emotionally up and down, don't know what I'm going to do. And if you look at it too, if you look at the stats around money and people getting in trouble, what I mean by that is either divorces or drugs or all these adrenaline junkie types of behaviors. It's very prevalent in the money affluent, because they don't know what the heck to do, because they've climbed this mountain and they're like, now what? So if you have the psychology, you're grounded, you're more likely to make the better decisions. If I can draw an analogy to Hollywood couples, right? It's when you see these two people who are very famous get together and they don't have their shit together, almost inevitably they're going to break up. But sometimes there's these couples that get together and they stay together for 30, 50 years because they have the underlying, the backstory, the psychology of it, psychology is there. So that's why.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And as I've been building with what I'm doing too, like you learn the way you change, the way you approach problems, and how you view what you're doing drastically changes. Plus, my purpose has changed too. With everything I'm doing, I find like the more successful I get, the more zoned in and zeroed in I get on that true purpose. So you're 100% bang on.
Interesting that you say that. So my background is, as you know, I've been a professional speaker for 28 years. And there's an old joke in the professional speaking industry, which says this, because a lot of times newer speakers come into the industry going, oh, I'm going to solve all the problems and I'm going to speak on this and this, and I'm an expert in this and that. And the joke with the old veteran speakers, we go, if you give me a list of your topics, I can tell you how long you've been in the business. The shorter the list, the longer you've been in. And that's exactly what it is. It's about honing your skills. It's about finding your purpose. It's on understanding. And you want to do something better than anyone else in the freaking world. And when you can do that, that's where wealth in all forms comes from.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we actually start building that psychology, right?
Okay.
So we've recognized that we need it. How do we start?
Okay, so I have a concept I use. I call it a value print. So if I made a list of 5 things and I said, everyone on the call, or I said to you, Seth, okay, 5 things: money, health, education, family, and religion. And I said, rank them from 1 to 5. 1 most important, 5 least important. Right? You can do it. Some people, it's really easy. Some people, it's a little more difficult. They jostle with 2 and 3. But the point is, you can come up with a ranking system. Okay. So that ranking system, I call a value print. I'm a numbers nerd. And if you are a mathematical nerd like me, there's 120 different ways you can rank those five things. Now, if I had a 6th dimension to it, it goes from 120 different combinations to 720 different combinations. If I add an 8th one, we go up to 5,000 different combinations. So at any given time, we have hundreds of things we're ranking, right? Smoking, not smoking, hanging out with your friends. Some are trivial, some are really important, but at any given time, we have hundreds of these things we're ranking. How you rank these is what I call your value print. The only truly predictable thing about human behavior is we act according to our values. Okay, so how do you get money? Really, what it comes down to this: what's the psychology? The psychology is wealth and wealth creation has to be high, and if it's not, then you don't do the things that get you there. So, for example, someone who has physical fitness is one of their top 2 values. You do not have to remind them to work out. You do not have to set an alarm. They feel guilty or they feel yucky if they don't go to their 1,400-kilometer run that morning, right? No one needs to remind them. No one needs to guilt them. They just do it. So generally, people do not have wealth creation up there. But I'll tell you what they do have, and this is the big misnomer, is people have a high value of social acceptance, or people have a high value of keeping up with the Joneses. And so when people go, oh, I wish I had money, I have this car, I want this car, people think they have wealth creation, but they don't. What they actually have is spending and status up there. And so because of that, when it comes down to, I could save this $500, or I could take this and start saving for a down payment on a unit, or I could put this as down because the new iPhone came out, and the iPhone is keeping up with the Joneses, and everyone else is doing that. And this wealth thing is actually much lower on the list. So this is why, in the moment, people act and they go, "Oh, I can't save. Oh, I can't." It's not that you're not saving; it's that you're acting according to your values, and you can't not do it. So that's the reason why people aren't creating wealth, is because it's not high enough on their values. So the next logical question becomes, well, then how do you change that? And assuming you want to change it, I mean, that's the first real core question is, do you actually want it? Because like anything else, if you want to work out and get into better shape, there are costs. There is pain. There is time pain, physical pain, financial pain, and all that other stuff. So if someone has a really super high value on acceptance and socializing and all this other stuff, and they have a really high value on the, wanting to belong, and a lower value on money, you can't motivate them enough to save. Because what happens is you can scare them and intimidate them and incentivize them, and they will save a little bit, but I promise you eventually they'll burn out and crash. It is not a sustainable relationship. It's not a sustainable proposition. So what you actually have to do is rejig the values so that wealth creation comes up higher. Then all of a sudden, when the choice is $500 here or $500 on iPhone, and that's not even a fair comparison, it's $1,500 here or $1,500 for an iPhone, then all of a sudden they go, I don't give a crap about the iPhone, because they see the long vision and they're buying into that, and they don't even have to be motivated or convinced because it's just along the path. Like, you go out with a health buff and there's the kale salad and there's the nachos with cheese. They eat the kale salad because once they catch on to it, it legitimately becomes part of their DNA. That is what they want to do. Again, you don't have to scare them, intimidate them, frustrate them. They do it because they want to.
Yeah, or you have me. I eat the nachos and feel bad the next day. But so how does delayed gratification and how our brain is wired work into that? Because, like, we use the health example there. Liposuction, charges a premium because there's no delayed gratification. You're fat, you get lipo, and then you're skinny. But, like, if you're actually going to work out, you have to build the habit, and so many people fall off the wagon because it's like delayed gratification. You don't see results right away. And the same thing with wealth creation. So how do we rejig our brain? Because, like, we're wired to want things instantly. So how do we fight against that natural urge?
And again, keep in mind that the big thing is about sustainability. So even if you got the instant gratification, you won the lottery, guess what? If you don't have the psychology of it, you will lose it. Right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the actual marshmallow experiment. And if for those who aren't, maybe they took a bunch of 4-year-olds years ago, and they said, here's the deal. And they made them stare at a marshmallow. And they said, if you want, you can eat the marshmallow. But I'm going to leave the room. And when I come back to the marshmallows there, I'm going to give you 2. Right? So it's an experiment around delayed gratification. And then they found that, some of the kids ate it, some of the kids didn't. And then they tracked them until like their early 20s or something. And they found that the ones that delayed had better marks in school, they had better relationships, they got higher paying job, blah, 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 blah. So they found this idea of delayed gratification to be instrumental. But it will go one further. There was a survey that they did. I think this is very fascinating. They took 2 groups. One group, they made them stare at cauliflower for like 20 minutes or half an hour. And these are kids. Then they took another group and they made them stare at a chocolate chip cookie. And in both cases, they weren't allowed to eat the cauliflower or the chocolate chip cookie. Then they took both groups and they gave them puzzles to solve that were slightly beyond them. So they weren't going to be able to solve them. And what they were trying to track was how long before they gave up. Okay. And so what they found was the kids that stared at the cauliflower stayed longer at trying to solve the problem than the kids that stared at the chocolate chip cookies. And the result, the aha of this was they're claiming that willpower is a finite result. So if you use all your willpower staring at the cookie going, I'm not going to eat it, 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 then you didn't have enough wherewithal to continue to try to solve the puzzles, right? So going back, well, how does that play in here? Well, that's exactly what I was saying, that if wealth creation is not high on the values and you try to enforce yourself to wealth create, and you go, I'm supposed to save 10% of my check. I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to. And that's the language. I'm supposed to, I should, as opposed to I get to, I want to. Then eventually it will burn out. So remember, even if you're a jackass and you have $10 million, you're a jackass with $10 million. So if you are overweight and unhealthy and you get liposuction, you're just a thin, unhealthy person. You still have the same habits. You're still going to have health issues. So again, what you want to do is rejig the psychology. So the question people should be asking is, how do I create and bring wealth creation higher on the list? And what's the secret sauce to that? The secret sauce to that is it's about knowing who you are and being honest with yourself. Because it's a concept I call value translation. You see, every conflict in the world comes from one of 2 reasons. Either number one, you expecting me to live into your value print, or number two, me expecting you to live into my value print. Every conflict from whether I should tell you, what your country should be doing with its oil, or how many people you're allowed to marry, or where you should be squeezing the toothpaste. Okay, it's either me expecting you, this is my way, or you expecting me. And I have names for those. One I call a jellyfish relationship. The jellyfish relationship is when I bend over to appease you. Oh, just be my friend. Oh, I'll do whatever you want. I'll change. That's a jellyfish relationship. And the other one I call a mule relationship, because you're very stubborn. It's like, Seth, if you're going to live in my house, these are the rules. My way or the highway, or get it. And people can probably, I'm hoping, relate to that in relationships, whether it's a platonic one or a romantic one or an occupation one. These are the type of relationships we have.
Yeah, I'm the mule ass one. That's me. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the problem with both those relationships is, in the long term, both are unsustainable. Because if you're my boss and you're constantly yelling at me and berating me, and can you force me to do stuff you want me to do? Yes, but guess what? When I go home on the weekends, I'm looking for another job. It's not sustainable. On the flip side, if I'm giving you everything you want, oh yeah, I'll burn out. So both don't help. So what you want to do is what I call value translation. When I can express to you what I want in terms of what's important to you, then we have a symbiotic relationship. We have value translation. So how does this play out into wealth creation? Well, it works like this. I know if I can do a list, if I have an idea of what my value print is, and this is an exercise that it's really important for people to do. And people go, I don't know what my values are. You kind of do. Why? Because the mental calories that you spend, the physical time, the financial wealth that you spend, where do you spend it? Because if you spend it on cars, guess what? Cars are a value. If you spend it on education, guess what? Education is a value, right? When you're drifting off and you're daydreaming, what are you thinking about? Right? So that gives you an idea what your values are. And this is an exercise that if you go through it, you got to really be honest with yourself. You can't BS and go, well, really all I do is I think about cars, but I don't want to tell anyone that because they're going to judge me. Don't tell anyone that, but be honest with yourself. If you love cars, freaking love cars. Because I'll tell you this, every value in the world is actually arbitrary. What I mean by that is we pick them randomly. So look at it. In North America, we drive on the right side of the road. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you go to England. Then there's a big problem. And they're not right and they're not wrong, and we're not right and we're not wrong. What we do is when we come into a society, we go, if you're going to live in this sandbox, we want you to live according to these values, right? And then you can be wrong against society, but whether we choose to drive on the right side or the left side, it's completely arbitrary initially. Then when we invite people into our sandbox, then it becomes a right or wrong thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think like the different levels of wealth, they act like their own sandboxes with different values that they find attractive that you have to conform to. So like if I'm hanging out with my wealthiest friends, what they value in people is very, very different if I were to hang out with my not so wealthy friends. Like they're just thinking and valuing different things.
100%. 100%. And then that's, I actually heard someone say it that way. If you hang out with dollar heirs, you have dollar ideas. If you hang out with $10 heirs, you have $10 ideas. $100 heirs, $100 ideas. $1,000, $1 million heirs, $1 million heirs. Millionaires, $1 million ideas, and so on. Totally. And you're right. But even if you look at it, forget money for a second, look at it socially. Think about how you were in grade school when girls had cooties, to high school when it was all about girls, right? I'm just picking an arbitrary example, versus you're married and now all of a sudden socially it's you're looking for people who also have kids who can relate to your pain, right? So back to the regularly scheduled program here, which was how do we bring wealth higher up in the value print? So make a snapshot of your values. So, and I'm using cars as a very arbitrary example because it's easy to understand, but cars are important to me. And it might not just be cars. Cars might be your first 6 values, right? It's engine size, it's color, it's standard versus automatic. And I'm not a car guy, so forgive the weak analogy. But the point is, cars are important to us. I go, okay, cars are important to us, but I want to make wealth creation more important. So we have to value translate. So what we need to understand is, how do we make value creation and relate it to cars? And I mean, the really simple link is, the more wealth I have, the more cars I can get, right? So again, I'm an analogy guy. Whenever I'm trying to hit a point, I try to beat it from a bunch of different angles. Someone who smokes all their life, like, quitting is easy, I've done it hundreds of times, right? The reason that they don't quit, and they know they should, I know I should, but it's healthy for me. The reason they don't do it is because quitting smoking is too low on their value print. So how do we increase it? Well, you also, assuming we can get to their value print and they say family's important and they want to see their grandkid graduate high school, whatever it is. So if we can tap into those values, that's going to have much more powerful, sustainable impact on changing than getting a patch, getting someone to guilt them, increasing the price of cigarettes, putting nasty pictures on it. It's the value for that particular individual that says, holy smokes, I want to see my grandchild graduate high school. That'll have a lasting impact, because what you've done is you value translated. So back to the wealth, that's basically what we need to do. We need to know, so let's say your top 5 or 10 values, if you can come up with 3 reasons for each one of those 10 things as to why value creation supports and brings you closer to that. And the reason I say 3 reasons, because the way our mind works is, we hit a certain tipping point at some point. We just need to keep bombarding it. Like, a lot of times when we go, I have so many things to do, oh my goodness, I'm swamped today. If you actually made someone sit down and go, all right, we're going to write down all the things you need to do today, right? That list might be 7 things. And if it's a crazy day, it might be 12. And so we just need to sometimes write it out so that our mind kind of goes, wait a minute, I get it. This isn't so bad. Or I see the thing shifting. And so that's really, what it comes down to is, go, what's important to me right now? And this has to be done with no judgment to yourself, with no guilt, without shaming yourself. It should be family. It should be church. Doesn't matter. You don't have to share with anyone. It is what it is. So once you get to that, then you can actually start making a change in your own life through what I call value translation.
Gotcha. So I guess let's say somebody is not in that wealthy mindset right now. They're just working on those values. What is one tip you would offer them in terms of, like, how to build that?
Yeah. Well, when in doubt, go to people that have done it. I mean, I'm assuming that's what a lot of your guests are, people that have successfully done that, and you buy them lunch and you ask them, what are some of the most important things to you? I mean, get an idea of what their snapshot. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have the money to buy them lunch, go to the library, jump online, right? I mean, there's really, what you want to do is, rather than reinvent the wheel, how do we find out where people already are psychologically? Because, like you said, different groups complain about different things. Some people complain about, the man at work and he's making me late. And some people complain about, I only got a 38% return this year. And you want to learn from the people that only got a 38% return. And you ask them, how are you getting 40 next year? And you take note, because what you're trying to do is, you're trying to get a snapshot of their value print. Because when you understand what that is, then you can go, all right. And by the way, I want to clarify here, this is not about emulating and being other people. You want to be authentic to who you are. But I promise you this, the people that are really successful, they're doing things that will resonate with you, that will sing to you. And you don't have to do everything they're doing, but the things that do resonate with you, grab those and implement those into your value system by value translation.
Gotcha. So then, why aren't more people doing this? Why aren't they taking it seriously and actually doing all this stuff?
That's a good question. Again, why aren't they doing it? I mean, it's because value is there. I think that most people don't recognize that it's really that simple. That they think they value money and wealth, but they actually aren't. What they are valuing is the status, or they're valuing what they think money represents to them. And those are very big distinctions, because money itself is absolutely useless, right? Like if someone has $1 billion in bills sitting in a room, what can they do with it? You can't even burn it anymore. It's not made of paper, it's plastic, it's toxic, right? So what happens is people often jump to the next level of, what am I transforming the money into? And that is, oh, it's a car. Oh, what does the car give me? Oh, the car gives me prestige. The car gives me status. The car gives me this. And so people kind of cut out the middleman, and they go, I have to save to get the car, to get the to get the status, get the prestige. What they go is, I want the prestige. And it's the liposuction version, if you will.
Yeah.
They want the pill. And the problem is I think it was Stephen Covey that said it. He goes, if you wait for the day before the harvest to plant the seeds, I promise you they're not growing overnight, right? You have to start in the springtime so that it's ready by the fall. And it's the same thing. People get impatient. I mean, really what it comes down to is either lack of knowledge or lack of doing.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
Yeah. Or a combination of both.
Yeah. So I guess, when you've been looking at this, studying wealthy people and wealth creation, we already know willpower is one of our Achilles heels. Like if my fiance Darcy bakes, 24 chocolate chip cookies, I have zero willpower. I will demolish the whole thing. And it happens all the time. So then what is a good hack in terms of developing that willpower? So then we can, seek that delayed gratification rather than doing things right now. So we can think long-term with our values and what we really want. Have you found anything that works?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's a great question. And that's, how if you read a lot of these wealth creation books, they say, save 10% of your money, take it out right off the paycheck. Don't even look at it, put it into an account. There's actually a lot of brilliance in that, because again, if out of sight, out of mind is what it is. And because people have a financial story that they tell themselves, whether it's you're a multi-billionaire, or you're an above poverty guy, or whatever story in between, we get to a point where we see that number and then we go, ooh, I've arrived, and then we start spending it, or I'm on the path and I got to keep going. So if you're not, how do I say it, psychologically resilient enough, sometimes hiding the wealth from yourself is a great way to create it. And that idea of that forced savings, that 10%, and literally don't look at it. And you go to the bank and go every 6 months, roll it into a new GIC or whatever it is, right? Because even if you're putting it into something that's, and then we're talking more mechanics here, but I'm trying to get to the psychology of the mechanics. Because yes, if you put it in a GIC, some people, especially in real estate, might be like having a coronary going, why would I put it in at 2 or 3% when I can do 30, 40, whatever percent? I get it. But what I'm trying to say is part of the building of it comes from leaving it and letting it be. And I'm not saying you do that with all your portfolio. In fact, if you look at the stats are staggering. If you look at the top 100 or 500 wealthiest people in the world, the percentage of them have a decent sized real estate portfolio. So to create ultra wealth, you definitely need real estate. And by no means would I suggest not doing that. But to answer your question, what's the hack? The hack is sometimes that's the training wheels you need to do. So if you do that for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then after 2 years, you look at it and you go, I have X number of dollars. I never thought I could do that, and I didn't notice it. That might be the training wheels you need to go to that next step. I mean, similarly, how do you avoid eating 24 of you say brownies or chocolate chip cookies?
Chocolate chip cookies, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, what's the really simple answer? It's
she has to hide them.
Yeah, that's make the cookies, right? She has to hide them. Now, it should get to the point, and that's what people when they're dieting, that's what they do. They don't buy the foods. But when you get to a psychologically healthy enough place, you can have the foods in the house and you're in control. But until you're there, then that's where you use the guide, you use the support, you use the coaches, you use you use programs like this, you use the education to get to that to get that level. You hide the money, you invest in a REIT rather than doing it on your own. You have a third party and you go, we're each giving you $100,000. We want you to go and do whatever. So there are ways of doing it, but the ultimate goal is to be in that psychological safety spot where you go, I am a multi-billionaire, and this is on the way to getting there. And if I only have $5 million in the account, I'm not going to go, burn it on 17 Teslas. It's just part of it. But at the same time, too, part of that balance is if you're making wealth, don't live like a stingy bastard. Enjoy it. There's an old joke that says the guy says to the doctor, he says, so doctor, how long am I going to live? And he goes, well, it depends. He goes, do you exercise? Oh man, he says, I exercise like 4 hours a day. I run, I lift weights, cardio, aerobic, anaerobic. I do it all. He said, oh, that's great. He goes, well, what about eating? Do you eat meat? No, I've been a vegetarian. I really healthy, all plant all diet. Oh, do you smoke? My God, no, I've never had a puff in my life. Coffee? No, coffee is crap. It's toxic. It's sludge. Do you drink? No, I don't drink. Of course I don't drink. The doctor says, then why the hell do you want to live? Right? And so the idea is if you're creating wealth, enjoy it along the way, right? Don't live 100% in delayed gratification. Only living for the future is really not good. Well, spending it all right now is really not good, right? It's having that higher purpose, and that higher purpose is the value. And that higher purpose might be, I want to create a retreat. I want to send my great grandkids to university. It doesn't matter what it is because it's based on your values. You don't even have to share it with anyone, but that inner drive is what's going to carry you much further. So, I'm going to pick on you, Seth, because you brought it up. The reason that you eat the chocolate chip cookies is simple. The benefit on your taste buds in that moment is a higher value than long-term health.
Yeah, she's really good at baking those. So it's 100% true.
It's easy to point the finger. It's her fault, I know. No, but you understand what I'm saying, right? And if you wanted to change that, you can. Like, again, it's a value translation thing. So you kind of go, how do I do that? What is it I'm getting from here, and how can I bring up this health piece? And by the way, I'm using that as an extreme example. You're a very fit guy. You can eat. Should you be eating 24? Probably not. But
no.
Right. But you get what I'm saying here. It's the exact same methodology. Is what's the value print? What are the top values? Why are you doing it? You're doing it because you like the taste. Why do people smoke? They smoke because they like the high. Why do people drink? They like the buzz. Why do people spend? They spend because they like what it represents to them. So what is another form you can get that same buzz? And how do we shift it up?
Yeah, no, 100%. We just need to find sugar-free cookies so I can still get the taste.
And by the way, just along that line, can you find sugar-free cookies? Can you find kale cookies that taste good? Probably, but there's a cost to it, right? There's always a cost. So if you're switching, there's always a cost. In this particular case, if you go find the chocolate kale cookies that are decadent, I don't know, they're probably going to be $100 a cookie. Yeah. Right? Like, so again, there are alternatives, but what people often do is they go, well, I'm not willing to pay that. And again, the reason they're not willing to pay it is because on the value list, they're going, well, I can eat this one for so cheap, and this one is more expensive. And it kind of, it alters the way they behave. So when we have a list, in fact, there's another exercise you can do. If you make a list of your 10 top values and kind of understand that this is kind of how you make your decisions, right? And if you look at it and you're happy, great. But if you want, I would rather make my decisions differently. Make your ideal top 10 values. I would rather have my decisions be based, number one, on family, number two, on health, whatever. And by the way, with regards to the values, in North America especially, we're trained to say certain things that aren't true. Like around, if I ask a typical North American group, what's more important, family or work? Everyone always says family, of course, family. And if I ask them, what does their life demonstrate? Are they missing their kids' games? Are they working late when they should, like when they promise to be home for dinner? So getting to the core of the values is what you're actually demonstrating. It's not what you want it to be. So there's an exercise you can do. Here are what my top 10 values are. Well, what do I want them to be? If I was making what I thought was the healthiest decisions for me in terms of wealth of all areas, financial, psychological, physical, etc., what would I want those, those core things to be? And then value translate from your current list to get to the new list. And it is something that it happens over time. It's not unfortunately, it's not a liposuction, swallow the pill and you're done. But here's the good news. Unlike liposuction or swallow the pill, when the pill wears off, you're just back to where you were. But if you do this organically, then it's just as hard to break as the initial cycle. So it is a solid way of moving forward. It's like, I'm going to give you a quick speaking analogy. As a speaker, there are two ways to grow your business. One is you use external advertising, Google AdWords or billboards or Yellow Pages, if you're old enough to know what those are, or you organically grow, right? So you hope that when you do one presentation, someone in the audience brings you to another one. They're both great. The thing is, if you're using external and your presentation is not very good, what happens is when it stops, when you stop paying the money into it, it collapses. Whereas if you grow organically, you continue to grow organically because you're just building on the foundation. And when you get to a really big business, doesn't matter if you're advertising or not, you're advertising by doing a good job. So same idea. It is, if you do it over time, you will create a much more solid psychological base.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, that's awesome. Well, Sunjay, this was awesome. Like, you covered a whole lot of good stuff. Where can people find your book? Like, where can they order a copy?
My website. Can I type it in the chat?
Oh yeah, just give us the URL and we'll
it's
put
my
it
name.
in all the
It's sunjaynath.com. So www.sunjaynath.com.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, like I said, we've got 3 copies. Darcy's got one. I've got one, and we really enjoyed it. So that's great.
Did you get 3 copies because you wanted to read it 3 times?
No, we just took 3.
All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, no, thanks very much for coming on today and talking about the secrets behind wealth creation. Really do appreciate it.
Happy to be here. If I can do anything else to help, please let me know.
All right, that sounds good. All right, so real quick before we go, we will have to, let's see. Katie has picked our t-shirt winner. So George Sampson is the winner of the t-shirt. So the Mogul in the Making t-shirt. George, just get in touch with Katie. Just leave a comment. We'll be in touch. We just need your mailing address and your t-shirt size, and we'll go from there. And then don't forget to like and comment to get entered into the Multifamily Conference draw for the end of this month. So until next time, I'll see you on Multifamily Mondays. Until next time, happy investing.